for joining me. I am Hawkeye, and this is Maple Leafs Man Advantage. And today I'm going to talk about the 1972 NHL Amateur Draft, and we'll definitely take a deep dive into that. First thing, though, I've been meaning to say this, and I've been forgetting to do so. Um, but Paul Morris, who was the voice at Maple Leaf Gardens, has just passed away. He had the gig for like 38 years or something like that, the announcer at Leaf games. There's been only four in the Toronto Maple Leafs history that have done the job. And personally, uh, I grew up with him being the voice at Toronto Maple Leaf games, but he's got a special place in my heart. Very monotone voice, but the exact opposite of what announcers do today. Um, but I thought he was amazing, as well as I forget his name. Somebody out there put his name in the comments. I looked it up, I forget it, but he was the voice of the Montreal Forum, and I swear he was at the Bell Center for a while. He was exceptional as well. They just had voices and were excellent at their job at being announcers at the hockey games. But he just passed away, and he was 86 years old. Um, so, anyways, I think as well, read it in the paper, and Daryl Sittler said you knew you were in the NHL when you heard him announcing your name at the Gardens. So that was pretty nice. So, anyways, we're going to talk about the 1972 NHL Amateur Draft, and it happened on the exact same day as the reverse draft. That was June the 8th, 1972, if I'm not mistaken. And it was held once again at the Queen Elizabeth Hotel in Montreal. Now, there are two teams being added to the NHL, the Atlanta Flames and the New York Islanders. And they are, boom, they're going to be added into this draft at the same time. And one of these two teams is going to get the number one pick. Sad for Vancouver Canuck fans, as they really do need a number one player to add to their lineup. They're kind of rolling their wheels in the mud here. They're not getting very far. And they need some improvements to their lineup, but they will get the number three pick overall. So it was given to the New York Islanders, the number one pick. And with this pick, the Islanders chose right winger Billy Harris. He was born on January 29, 1952, in Toronto. His final season in junior, where he played for the Toronto Marlboros, and if I'm not mistaken, that was right in Maple Leaf Gardens. Billy had scored 57 goals and had 129 points with 87 penalty minutes. He wasn't a big penalty minute guy. He wasn't a dirty player, but um, he did that in just 63 games. Billy then jumped into the NHL this upcoming season. It must have looked like he had belonged. It must have appeared that way. He ended up scoring 28 goals in his rookie year. Very good. And was ended up in third in Calder voting. He lost out to Steve Vickers of the rival New York Rangers. He scored 30 goals in just 61 games for the Rangers. Um, Now, taking a deeper look into Billy, he also scored 20 goals 6 consecutive seasons for the Islanders. Um, but for New York, they did not seem to be getting where they believed they should have in the playoffs. They weren't able to win those big series in the playoffs. So Billy, the first pick overall of all time for the Islanders, was traded along with teammate Dave Lewis to the LA Kings for Butch Goring. A big trade for the Islanders there. Let's just say the Islanders went on to win four consecutive cups after that and was in the finals 5 years in a row. But you can't hang all that on Billy's head or his neck. Um, After the Kings, Billy also played for the Leafs uh, before he was traded back to the Kings. Um, so did Billy live up to his first overall pick? I would say he definitely did not, unfortunately. But he was a good player. Billy ended up playing 897 games in the NHL, scoring 231 goals, adding 327 assists for 558 points. He had a career high 32 goals in 1975-76 for the Islanders, and he was an All-Star that same year as well in 1976. So he went first overall. Good player. He's going to play for a while in the NHL. But also in the first round, there were a couple of Hall of Famers. We had Steve Shutt, who of course was drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. He was from Toronto as well, if I'm not mistaken. He went on to score 424 goals in 930 games, or he scored 50 goals in 99 playoff games. He was an All-Star 3 times and won 5 cups with the Habs. Wow. There was also Bill Barber, drafted by the Philadelphia Flyers, who went on to score 420 goals in 903 NHL games, or 53 goals in 129 playoff games. He was a 6 time All-Star and won the Cup twice with the Philadelphia Flyers. So there were a couple of great players there to be had in the first round. Now, the Leafs ended up with the number 11 selection in the first round. For my team, I'm going to do the same. There wasn't any really big differences between my own team and the Leafs team of that year. So I will go with this pick as well for my very own team. Um, this upcoming season, though, um, there's going to be some changes to my team with the actual Leaf team of this year. So I'm going to have to figure some things out, look at it and everything like that. But that'll be maybe in the next video or something like that. But with this selection at number 11 in the first round, the Leafs ended up drafting center George Ferguson. He was born on August 22nd, 1952 in Trenton, Ontario. He had played 3 seasons in the OHA for the Oshawa Generals and the Toronto Marlboros, along with Billy Harris. Meaning, along with Harris, Steve Shutt was a teammate, as well as Dave Gardner. And they were all drafted in the first round. 4 players off the same team. That's a lot, in my opinion, in the first round. So there you have it. Now, George in his junior had played 164 games, scoring 67 goals with 92 assists for 159 points. He bagged 36 goals and got 92 points, along with 104 penalty minutes. Like Billy Harris, I don't think he was a big penalty minute guy either, but that was in his final season with the Marlies in just 62 games. George would go on to play 797 NHL games. He'd score 160 goals with 238 assists for 398 points. His best seasons, though, weren't in Toronto. They were with the Pittsburgh Penguins, who he was traded to. He scored 20 goals for them in 4 consecutive seasons. He was getting more playing time in Pittsburgh than he was in Toronto. I seem to think of him as more of like a third liner in Toronto. But he did get 25 goals in 1980-81 with the Penguins. So that's who they selected in the first round. Now, personally, I'm going to go in another direction here. I would have selected a rough and tumble defenseman who can hopefully fill in where some of the Leafs men on the point have moved to the WHA. And some of them are gone. They need some help on defense, I do believe. Remember, Jim Dory has gone in a trade with New York. Rickley, Brad Selwood, they're gone to the WHA. I do also feel they need some muscle in the lineup with Brian Spencer gone to the Islanders as well. And Jim Harrison has gone to the WHA. So they need some muscle and a defenseman. So I'm going to go with Phil Russell. He was selected at number 13, so 2 picks after by the Chicago Blackhawks. Uh, Sorry, I like penalty minute guys. They're not so, that's not a big thing in hockey anymore, but um, In his final season in junior, he had 331 penalty minutes for the Edmonton Oil Kings. That's a lot of penalty minutes. He played 15 years in the NHL, suiting up for 1,016 games. He scored 99 goals, did 325 assists for 424 points. Um, so there was some offense to his game as well, and he racked up 2,038 penalty minutes. That's a lot of penalty minutes. He had 260 PIMs in 1974-75 for the Hawks. So yeah, he wasn't just a fist on the ice, as I said. He's got some offense to his game, and he played in 3 All-Star games as well. So there you go. So he played with the Hawks, but he also played for both Calgary and the Atlanta Flames, the New Jersey Devils, and the Buffalo Sabres over the course of his career. So I would select defenseman Phil Russell and see if we can put him in the lineup quickly. So in the second round, the Leafs had the number 27 pick. With the selection, the Leafs chose winger Randy Osborne, also known as Ozzy, like Ozzy Osbourne. I love that. Born on November 26, 1952, in Collingwood, Ontario, he played 2 seasons in the OHA for the Hamilton Red Wings and the London Knights. Overall, he played 117 games, scored 62 goals with 90 assists for 152 points. Pretty darn good there. In his final season, he scored 43 goals and had 100 points for the Knights in just 63 games. Unfortunately, though, this did not translate over to the NHL for Ozzy. He played just 27 games and he only had 2 assists, so he wasn't probably used very much when he was in those games. So that was it for him. So I'm looking around who was available tightly around where Osborne was selected, and I would have went with center Stan Weir. He was selected with the number 28 pick by the California Golden Seals. He must have played excellent in the WCHL for the Medicine Hat Tigers, where he played for 2 seasons. First season, he had 52 goals and 111 points. His second season, he had 58 goals and 133 points. Pretty darn good there. Stan even did play with the Leafs from 1975 through 78. Watching old footage, I've seen him play. He was a good player. Overall, he played 642 NHL games, scoring 139 goals with 207 assists for 346 points. He even jumped over to the WHA. After playing with the Leafs, of course, he was going to the WHA and played with the Edmonton Oilers for 1 season. He played 68 games, scored 31 goals. The next season, he was in the NHL with the Edmonton Oilers again, and had his career high. Um, Still with the Oilers because he was actually owned by the Leafs, but they put him on waivers and the Oilers claimed him. He just scored 31 goals, but you're putting him on waivers. I don't get it. He scored 33 goals that season, and the Oilers just picked him up off the waivers. Other than the Golden Seals, Leafs, and Oilers, he also played for the Colorado Rockies, um, and as well as the Detroit Red Wings. So there you have it. Probably the best teams he played on were the Leafs and the Oilers. The Rockies weren't so hot. Neither were the Red Wings, and neither were the Golden Seals. But so there you have it. So I would have selected Stan Weir. In the third round, the Leafs had the number 43 pick. They ended up selecting defenseman Denis Delorier, I think is how you pronounce that. He was born on May the 29th, 1952, and he played 2 seasons in the QMJHL for the Shawinigan Bruins. There he played 121 games, scoring 5 goals with 50 assists for 55 points. He appeared to be rough and tumble, as he had 313 penalty minutes as well. So definitely like to sit in the penalty box. He had 263 of those in his final season there. Then he never did suit up in the NHL at any time in his career. So we're gonna look around, see who we can find around the selection. And looking at our team as well, I see we have Jacques Blanc. He's going to be on the team here once again. He's going to be 44 years old. Incredible. He's still in net for us, but as I said, he's going to be 44 years old. So why don't we go and draft a goalie right here in the third round? Um, Not a bad idea at all. And I would select Mike. I think it's Visor. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I don't quite remember him playing, but he played when I was a kid for some teams. He was selected by the Chicago Blackhawks at pick number 45. While he'll never be a number one goalie in net, he may be a good fill-in as a backup goalie. He played 139 games. He won 41, tied 26, had 5 shutouts, had an 880 save percentage, and a 409 goals against average. So he played for the Hawks, and he also played for the Hartford Whalers and the Winnipeg Jets. So there you go. I'm going to select a goalie in the third round. So what do we got now? We've got the fourth round. Here we go. The Leafs have the number 59 pick. And with the selection, the Leafs ended up choosing another defenseman. They're selecting a lot of defensemen here. Brian Bowles. He was born in Montreal, Quebec on February the 18th, 1952. And he ended up playing 3 seasons in the queue for the Drummondville Rangers, Verdun Maple Leafs, and the Cornwall Royals. In the end, in the queue, he played 171 games, scored 12 goals with 71 assists for 83 points. He did end up winning the Memorial Cup for the Cornwall Royals in 1972. So that's excellent. He had a good squad there as it was coached by Orville Tessier. He coached the Chicago Blackhawks from 1982 through 85. He won the Jack Adams there in his first season with Chicago. And in net was Richard Brodeur. Um, he was in net before he was drafted, and also on defense with Bob Murray, who was selected by the Chicago Blackhawks. I remember him. But Brian never did play a game in the NHL. He did play 3 games in the WHA for the Cleveland Crusaders, but that was it. And no one around Brian played enough hockey in the NHL to make much of a difference, so I'll just keep this pick. Brian Bowles in the fourth round. So in the fifth round, the Leafs had the number 91 pick. And with this pick, the Leafs went with forward Michel Plante. I'm pretty sure he's got no relation to Jacques Plante, but he was born on January the 19th, 1952, which is interesting because Jacques Plante was born January 17th. But Michel was born in Drummondville, Quebec. He played for his hometown, Drummondville Rangers, much like Brian Bowles did. But Michel was there for 3 seasons, his entire junior career. He showed some good offensive flair in the 179 games he played. He got 101 goals, 129 assists, and 230 points. Quite good. Michel ended up skating over to the WHA though and played there for a couple seasons with the Vancouver and then first off it was the Philadelphia and then it became the Vancouver Blazers. In the WHA, he played 92 games, scored 16 goals with 14 assists with 30 points. Micheldo never did come and play in the NHL at any point, but he did play in the NAHL for the Philadelphia Firebirds for 3 seasons. And he showed some that offensive flair. He scored 52 goals and got 118 points for that squad, and they won the Lockhart Cup that season as champions. Um, Also on his team was Leafs draft pick Randy Osborne, as well as in net was Reggie Lenlin, who would later play in the NHL. I definitely remember him with the Boston Bruins at the end of his career. Good goalie. I liked him a lot. Um, but looking around Michelle, there was nobody Like the previous pick around him that played enough in the NHL to make that much of a difference. So I'll keep Michelle at my fifth round pick. Now, here we go. We're going into the sixth round now. I love these videos talking about draft picks. But we're in the sixth round, and I did for this is for my own team. I did trade Rich Lemieux to the Buffalo Sabres and got Tracy Pratt, and I think I could have also got the sixth round draft pick from this particular draft here in 1972. I didn't look ahead and just like, oh, okay, that's the guy I want. Also, I'll, work out this deal. No, that's not what I did. I just thought I think I could get a sixth rounder as well. And with this, I would select forward Peter McNabb, a big guy at 6'3", and at this point, he was playing for the University of Denver. So he may have been a very good player who should have went earlier, but he was playing in university. And I do find it kind of silly, but it really knocks you down in the draft because it's almost like everybody they draft they need right now. But a lot of players need development and aren't good enough to just jump right into your lineup right after they play junior hockey. And it's not like he's going to play university hockey for 10 years or 5 years or at this point. But they get knocked down in the draft because there's a bit of a waiting period with those guys. But that was a good pick right there, Peter McNabb in the sixth round. And he was selected by the Buffalo Sabres at the number 85 pick. This is who they selected. So I'm going to pick him up. And Peter ended up playing 955 NHL games, scoring 363 goals, adding 456 assists for 813 points. Not bad. He was also an All-Star in 1977. He also ended up getting two 40-goal seasons with the Boston Bruins, where I think he played his best hockey. And he had 41 in 1977-78. Along with the Sabres and the Bruins, he also played for the Vancouver Canucks and the New Jersey Devils. He also did play quite a bit of playoff hockey as well. Certainly playing with those Bruins teams, they were in the playoffs and they could get on some long runs. The Bruins teams in the '70s there, they had some real good teams there. He ended up playing 107 playoff games, scored 40 goals, 42 assists, 482 points. I think that's a great sixth round selection right there. That's Peter McNabb. Now, the Leafs in the sixth round have the number 91 pick. With this pick, Toronto ended up selecting Dave Chardlow. He was born on January the 1st, 1952, which is interesting because that is the same birthday as my wife. I mean, the date, not the year. My wife's not quite that old. But he was born in Lethbridge, Alberta, and played 2 seasons in the WCHL for the Flin Flon Bombers. Love that name. Altogether, he played 77 games, scored 48 goals with 44 assists for 85 points, as well as 116 power minutes. Not bad, getting over a point a game right there. And you're picking up in the sixth round. But unfortunately, this didn't transfer over to the NHL. Dave did not play a game in the NHL. And no one around Dave made a big impression or played a lot in the NHL either. So I'll just keep that pick, Dave Chardlow, in the sixth round. So we're moving along here. There's quite a few picks here. We're now in the seventh round, and we're up over 100 picks in this draft so far. So the Leafs have the number 107th pick. We're going after another defenseman here, and it was Monty Miron. He was born in Cornwall, Ontario, and he played a season at Clarkson University, and he would do so for another couple seasons as well after the draft. Um, with Clarkson University, he played 76 games, scoring 5 goals with 17 assists for 22 points. But Monty did not play in the NHL, but he did get into coaching after his playing days. And for the parts of a couple seasons, he was a head coach of the Seattle Breakers. in the WHL, doing some coaching. And once again, nobody around Monty ended up playing very much in the NHL, so I'll just keep this pick in the seventh round. So it's unfortunate with this draft. Like there's a lot of guys that didn't make the NHL, but no one around them that you could you could say maybe you should have went with that guy instead. So there's some, but yeah, not very many. So we're going to go into the eighth round, and the Leafs have the 123rd pick at this point, and we're going after another defenseman here. Yes, they need defensemen in Toronto for sure. They're drafting them here. Looks like not they're not being successful in who they're selecting though. But here in the eighth round, they went with Peter Williams. He was born on March the 31st, 1952, in Charlottetown, PEI. This East Coaster, he also went to the University of Prince Edward Island for a season as well. Peter didn't make the NHL as well. And it's like a broken record here, guys. Nobody around him made a big difference in the NHL, so we'll keep Peter Williams in the eighth round. So here we go. We're going into the ninth round now, and this is where the Leafs make a bit of a splash. So far, they've drafted George Ferguson, and that's it. And we've gone through 8 rounds. Um, it's not it's not very good, really. Um, but at this point, they're going to make a good pick here. For my own team, I have Phil Russell, Stan Weir, Mike Vieser. Maybe that's how you pronounce it. Sorry, how you pronounce that. And Peter McNabb. I've got all those guys through 8 rounds. So hindsight is 2020, but there were guys there that I could select. Um, so here we go with the number 139 selection. The Leafs ended up choosing forward Pat Boutet, also known as Booter or Bash, the good nicknames there. He was born on March the 1st, 1952 in Windsor, Ontario. Pat had played one season in the OHA for the London Knights. Back in 1969-70, he played 53 games for 11 goals with 11 assists, or 17 assists for 28 points, and had 87 penalty minutes. And he was not afraid of the penalty box, Pat. He wasn't afraid to throw the mitts. But at this point, he was in the middle of playing for the University of Minnesota Duluth. For 3 seasons, he would play there. With that university, he played 101 games, scored 53 goals, adding 78 assists for 131 points and 248 penalty minutes. Pretty good. That's pretty darn good to me for university hockey. Score just over a goal every 2 games. That's pretty good. Pat would go on to play 756 NHL games, scoring 171 goals with 282 assists for 453 points. He also grabbed 1,354 penalty minutes. Other than Toronto, he also played for the Hartford Whalers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. He put up better offensive numbers in those two cities rather than Toronto. He was getting more playing time, much like George Ferguson was when he went to Pittsburgh. And he scored three consecutive 20-goal seasons, including his 28. That was his career high he had in 1981 for the Whalers. He also had 230 penalty minutes in 1981-82 for the Pens and had 23 goals at the same time. So he could do a lot out there on the ice there for you. He was muscle and he could put the puck in the net. I've seen Pat play watching old games, and then one thing I love about him is he played way bigger than he was. He wasn't a big man. He was the same height as I am. He was only 5'8", but he was muscling it out there like he was a good 6-footer. But he was not. He was 5'8". Excellent selection here by the Leafs in the ninth round, and I will do the same and select Pat Boutet in the ninth round. But that ain't it for Toronto. They also sent cash over to the Boston Bruins to get their ninth round selection as well. So this would be pick 143. And Toronto, they just keep selecting defensemen. And with this pick, they chose Gary Schofield, born on December the 19th, 1952 in Wayland, Massachusetts. Gary never did play a game in the NHL, unfortunately, but he would go and play for Boston College during the 1973-74 season and get a higher education at the same time, I'm sure. So, but in the ninth round, there was a player that they could have selected here. And he's a player much like Pat Boutet. Um, he may not have had maybe quite as much offensive flair, perhaps, but he would add muscle and grit up front. They could have selected left winger Gary Howitt. He was actually selected in the 10th round at the very next pick, the 144th pick by the New York Islanders. He ended up playing 720 NHL games. He scored 112 goals with 156 assists for 268 points. And he also had 1,836 penalty minutes. He scored 21 goals in 1975-76 for the Islanders, so he was a 20 goal scorer. He also had 242 penalty minutes in 1981-82 for the Hartford Whalers as well. And other than those two clubs, he also played for the New Jersey Devils. He won 2 Stanley Cups with the Islanders and was one of the guys on, just that first cup. Guys that were there in the beginning and were there until they won a Stanley Cup. There was him, Billy Smith, Jerry Hart as well. So there were guys that were there right from the first day, or the first season. I shouldn't say the first day. He didn't play much in that opening season, but he did play, I think, 8 games for the Islanders that year. So there you go. So now finally we're gonna go into the 10th round, and the Leafs traded that away to the Minnesota North Stars for cash. Interestingly, the North Stars in return didn't actually even make a pick. They just didn't do it, so they just gave Toronto money. I'll take it. I'll take that briefcase of cash. That's fine. No problem. And there was nobody picked around here that, would have made a difference anyway. So I'll make that trade. That's fine. So there you go. That's the 1972 NHL Amateur Draft and how the Leafs went. They got George Ferguson and Pat Boutet out of the draft. Two guys out of, there's 10 rounds that the Leafs were involved with, although they traded that 10th round pick. But there you have it. But those two guys will be helpful in the future for the Leafs for sure. For my own team, I was able to get 6 players in the nine rounds, and we'll get some good playing time in the future. So that's cool. So I'm gonna fire up a list here of who's coming to the Leafs draft picks yet to play. The list's getting long, but the guys that have been drafted that will play in the NHL, starting with guys that we will play in this upcoming year, going through whenever they did play. But I'll put that list up and you can take a look and see who would be on my team with the Leafs. So here we go. And then until next time, you said it. Go Leafs, go.